In our previous video, we showed how we can use a nested if test to validate data. In this case, what we're actually doing is we're making sure that we don't select an invalid option, which is supercrew with a long bed. But what we have neglected is confirming that when we have made a valid choice. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add an else part to this if test that says, okay, you have made a valid choice. Now be very careful here because we do have a nested if test, an if test within an if test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if we have selected supercrew and we have selected long bed, that's a combination we simply can't support because there's not a wheelbase long enough to support both supercrew and long bed. So we're going to go ahead and leave this message as it is. But if we have selected supercrew and we have not selected long bed, what are our other options? Either the short bed or the medium bed. Both of those are valid. So I'm simply going to add an else part to this inner if test. And I'm going to say joption pane dot show message dialog, and we'll say again null, comma, and then we'll say double quote, your selections are valid. We'll say cab, and then we're going to use, remember that overloaded plus sign, we're going to say selected cab, and then I'm going to say plus, again that overloaded plus sign, which is the string concatenation operator, and we're going to say bed, colon, space, and then selected bed. Okay, now the caution here is this is a nested if test, an if test within an if test. Oops, selected bed length, sorry. There we go. Okay, so this is only going to fire if we've selected supercrew. We're not worried about the other two bed types, the super cab or the regular cab, just yet. We'll come back to those later. We're only worried about the combinations that you can make with the supercrew. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and let's try this both ways. And this time, honestly, the best way to visualize might be to run through this in the debugger. Let me go ahead and run it as is first, and then we'll try it in the debugger. So we'll go ahead and run. Okay, remember we want the double cab, and I'm going to choose OK. We're going to go with our very first option, the long bed. We know that double cab and long bed won't work. Let's just confirm that that still will give us an error message. Sorry, but you cannot choose both double cab and long bed. Okay, that still works. Now let me run one more time. And this time we're going to choose a valid combination, double cab, and let's say medium bed. That's fine. Your selections are valid, cab, double cab, bed, medium bed. Right click, run one more time. Let's go ahead and choose double cab. And let's choose short bed, that's a valid combination. Your selections are valid, cab, double cab, and bed, short bed. Okay, so we validated our approach here that we are picking off the one combination that's invalid, any other combination we're calling valid. Okay. One bit of housekeeping I'm going to do. I changed the name supercrew, which is a trademark of Ford, to double cab when we're doing the prompts. I have not changed the constant yet. Let me go ahead and change the constant. I'm simply going to right click and I'm going to say refactor and rename, and we'll call this double cab, like so. And you'll notice that every instance of it has changed to double cab. That makes a little bit more sense now, so we're not confusing the terms supercrew and double cab. We're now using a uniform term all around. I kind of like that a little bit better. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save. Now I did promise to take this through the debugger. I'm going to click on line 32, which gives me the Pepto-Bismol color link. I'm going to right click now and choose debug. Remember what that Pepto-Bismol color means. It means when I go through the debugger, go ahead and run the program normally until we hit that line. Once we hit that line, let's step through by using the F8 and the F7 keys in NetBeans. Or did I say that right? I'm sorry. Yeah, F8 and F7, that's what we want. So we'll go ahead, right click, and we'll choose debug. And because we haven't hit the breakpoint yet, it's going to go ahead and give us that first pop-up, and we'll go ahead and say double cab. Okay. Now notice that it's hit the breakpoint, so the Pepto-Bismol colored line changes to green. I'm going to choose F8, which means execute this line. As soon as I choose F8, then we get our next selection screen, which is the bed selection. So let's start with long bed. Okay, now note where the green line is. When I choose F8, it's going to execute this line. Can we say selected cab equals double cab? Remember what I chose. Did I choose double cab? I did. So we'll choose F8. And notice what's going to happen is it's going to execute the next line within the open and closed curly that defines the boundaries of the true result of this if test. If that evaluated to false, it wouldn't execute this at all. Okay. So now, did I choose long bed? I did choose long bed. So now notice we're going to get, sorry, but you cannot choose both double cab and long bed. Let's debug one more time. We'll go ahead and choose F8. We'll go ahead and say continue. Debug, and we'll say continue F5. Let it keep running. Let's debug this one more time. Let's try a valid option. Okay, let's try double cab. And let's go ahead and say F8. And we'll say medium bed. That is valid. Okay, did we choose double cab? Is the selected cab the result of our J option pane? Is that equal to double cab? The answer is yes. So it's going to move on to line 35. Now, did we say long bed? No, we did not. So watch carefully what's going to happen. It's not going to execute line 36. Instead, it's going to jump to the else part, which is line 38. You see that? It completely skipped the true part of this if block. It jumped down to the else part. Okay? And then we'll simply choose F5 to continue. Your selections are valid. Double cab, medium bed, and there we go. Now at this point, we've only considered the double cab. What if I debug this one more time and I choose a different cab style? Okay, let's say we choose regular cab. And bed type doesn't matter. We'll go ahead and choose F8. Medium bed is fine. Now, is the selected cab, the output of that first J option pane, is it double cab? No, it's regular cab. Remember, we chose regular cab. So when I choose F8, it's going to skip this entire block, and it's simply going to terminate the program. Watch where the green line goes when I choose F8. Goes all the way to the bottom, and the program's now finished. But we want to think about this. Is this really a good place to finish the program? Because there are other invalid combinations. What if I choose regular cab and short bed? That's not available. With a regular cab, either the medium or the long bed is available. What if I choose super cab and short bed? That combination's not available either. If I choose super cab, I have to do medium or long. So we have to handle these conditions as well. Let me go ahead and double click so we can look at this in high def. And what I could do is I could simply duplicate this logic that I have here. I could say if, let's go with the short bed, selected cab dot equals, and then I'm going to say let's see, we're going to go with the regular. We'll use the constant again. Constant's very good. It's going to prevent us from making typing errors. So if it's a regular cab, we cannot do the short bed. So inside of this, if selected bed length dot equals, okay, and then we're going to say short, and I'll control space, allow that to autocomplete. Then we're going to say, we'll do a J, I'll just copy and paste here. J option pane, show input dialog. Sorry, but you cannot choose both regular cab and short bed. Okay. Else, all other combinations are valid, so we'll go ahead and borrow this J option pane here. Okay, note what I have here is I have, once again, another set of nested if tests. Okay, so let's save. All right, and we'll run one more time. I'll double click and minimize. And we will right click and we'll go ahead and choose run this time. Okay, so we're going to say cab type regular, bed length short. Sorry, but you cannot choose both regular cab and short bed. Okay, let's right click and run one more time. Okay, regular and medium bed. Your selections are valid. Cab regular, bed, medium bed. Okay, now let's take a look in the debugger. I want to look at something interesting here. I'm going to debug this again, and let's watch what happens when I choose back to our double cab and I choose F8, medium bed, that's a valid combination. Okay, we've seen this before. Yes, it's a double cab. No, it's not a long bed, so that's a valid selection. Okay, now notice what's happening here. It's running the second set of if tests here. Okay, well, gosh, it doesn't really have to run the second set of tests because we already know we have a valid combination. This seems like a bit of extra work. Now, since the selected cab is a double cab, not a regular cab, it will actually skip over this, but nonetheless it still has to do an evaluation, and it's a bit of wasted effort to have two separate if tests like this that are completely independent if we can already rule out the second option because we've already determined we have a valid selection. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to chain these together with an else if. Watch this. Do a little housekeeping here. You see what I have is I have if selected cab equals double cab, then we're going to execute what's true. The true condition is what happens in this open and close curly. If it's a double cab and we execute this, we don't even need to think about this next part. We'll skip it. We'll just skip it. Don't even worry about it. On the other hand, if we have a regular cab, this is going to evaluate to false. If this evaluates to false, then the area I'm highlighting now will not execute. Instead, it's going to come down and it's going to execute this and see if this returns true. If the else if part returns true, then it's going to execute what's in the curlies that I'm highlighting now. In other words, the curly I'm highlighting now and the curly block I'm highlighting now, these two are mutually exclusive. There's never going to be a circumstance in one run of this program where it's going to execute both this block and this block. At most, it will only execute one of the two blocks, and that's why we have the else if. So now, let's go ahead and save. Let's run our program again. I'm going to choose debug again, and let's watch what happens. This is where the debugger is really nice. Let's go ahead and go with regular cab, and regular cab, F8, and let's choose a valid bed, which is medium bed. Is it a double cab? No. So what happens when I choose F8? We go to the else if. Is it a regular cab? Yes. Is it a short bed? No. Then let's skip this block here, and let's run on down to the else part, F8. Oh, sorry. And you see now we've gone to the else part, and I choose F8 again, and we get our confirmation. Your selections are valid. Regular cab equals regular, bed equals medium. So selections are valid. Let's run this one more time. Let's try double cab and medium bed. So I go back, projects, right click, and I choose debug. Okay, this time we're going to choose double cab, and okay. And F8. We'll choose a valid option, medium bed is fine. Okay, so is it a double cab? Is this going to evaluate to true? The answer is yes, so we choose F8. Is it a long bed? No, it's not. That's going to evaluate to false, so we'll come down to the else part. F8. You see now we're in the else part. Your selections are valid. Now, because our selections are valid and because we've chosen a double cab, there's no longer a need to go through this whole mess of logic right here. Instead, when I choose F8, we'll get our confirmation, and then notice we completely skip the else if part. So the advantage of an if and else if is they're mutually exclusive. Only one will run at a time. The advantage of an if and an else is, again, they're mutually exclusive. The difference between an else and an else if. Let's take the simplest case, which is an else. With an else clause, we know that one or the other of these will definitely run. It's either going to be the if true or the else. One or the other will definitely run. With an else if, there's no guarantee that either one of these blocks will run. In other words, I've looked at double cab and regular cab. But what if I chose the crew cab? What if I chose the super cab? Let's see what happens then. So I go back, and I'm going to say debug. And we're going to go ahead and stick with SuperCab because I don't have an if test for SuperCab. We choose OK. F8, bed type doesn't matter here. We'll go ahead and go with medium. Is a SuperCab a double cab? No. SuperCab is different from a double cab. So this is going to return false. It's going to skip this entire block, and it's going to go to the else if. Is a SuperCab a regular cab? No, SuperCab is not a regular cab, so this will execute false again. This will evaluate to false. It will terminate the program, and what we'll see is we don't get any information whatsoever. So if you have an if and an else, one of the two will definitely execute. If you have an if and an else if, there's not a guarantee that one of the two will execute. We could put an else part here. We can have as many else ifs as we want. We could put an else part here and maybe some kind of JOption pane .show message dialog, and we could say null, comma, and then just to throw something in, we can say you chose a SuperCab. Okay? Okay, let's save this and let's run one more time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say, we'll just go ahead and run this. SuperCab, medium bed, you chose a SuperCab. Okay, run one more time. Double cab, medium bed, your selections are valid. Cab, double cab, bed, medium bed. Okay? Okay, this is a fairly complicated if test, and I have to warn you, if you've gotten to this point and you have this many ifs and elses going on, it starts to get hard to read. So what we're going to start to do is we're going to do a little bit of cleaning up in our next video. We're going to see how we can make this a little bit more efficient, and we are going to see how we can combine some of these if tests and else tests to make it look a little bit cleaner. We're also going to refactor the show message dialog to make that a bit cleaner as well. So stay tuned, we'll do that in the next video. One thing I will tell you that's very important. Every time you see a block is open curly, close curly. Everything inside of that block should be indented by one tab. So you see we have a block here? You see everything inside of that is indented by one tab. But you see we have another block here. Okay? Everything inside of that is indented by one tab as well. When you're turning in your assignment, make sure that you have indented properly. Because it's going to make it a whole lot more readable. That's a major point deduction if your indents are not proper. But don't worry, there's an easy way to do it. If you found you've gotten sloppy in NetBeans, Alt-Shift-F will fix your tabs. In other words, watch this. I'm going to intentionally make a very difficult to read program. Okay, you see this? You see how once the tabs get a little bit goofy, it becomes very hard to read our program because you cannot tell which if test goes to which else part. Don't do that, that's super confusing. But watch, as soon as I Alt-Shift-F, everything lines up again very easily. That is the easiest points to lose. It's the easiest points to earn also in your program. Before you save and submit your program, make sure you earn those 10 points, do Alt-Shift-F, and let it tab in. Okay, so that wraps up this video. In the next video, we'll take a look at some more complicated, or actually some simpler ways to do the same test. I look forward to seeing you then.